Ωραία, καλησπέρα σε όλους τους φίλους μας του Proteas TV. Welcome everyone to Proteas TV. For our English speakers friends that live outside Greece, just allow me to speak in Greek for 2 minutes, and then we will give the floor to Jacek and to Christos. Jacek, welcome to Proteas TV. Welcome remotely to Greece. It's our pleasure that you are here with us.
Hi. Thank you for the invitation.
Οπότε, για τους, αν μας ακούτε κανονικά, στείλτε μας ένα μήνυμα λίγο να σιγουρευτούμε ότι μας βλέπετε όλοι. Ένα ακόμα live του Proteas TV σε αυτό το δεύτερο κύκλο είναι γεγονός. Μαζί μας είναι ο Dr. Jacek από το Πανεπιστήμιο της Πολωνίας, από το Κατοβίτσε, όπου θα μας εξηγήσει, θα μας πει για τα σπήλαια των Tatras και τι το ιδιαίτερο έχουν αυτά. Θα ακολουθήσουν και άλλα live streaming στο μέλλον. Σχεδόν σε εβδομαδιαία βάση θα βγαίνουμε στον αέρα και με ξένους και με Έλληνες εισηγητές, για να μας ταξιδεύουν λίγο, να μαθαίνουμε, να βλέπουμε και άλλα πράγματα έξω από την Ελλάδα. Ήδη την προηγούμενη εβδομάδα μπήκαμε λίγο αρκετά δυναμικά με τον πρόεδρο της Παγκόσμιας Ομοσπονδίας Φιλολογίας και πλέον συμμετέχουμε και εμείς ενεργά στο 2021, που είναι το διεθνές έτος της σπηλολογίας, των σπηλαίων και του Καρστ. Οπότε θέλουμε να προωθήσουμε ακόμα περισσότερο την σπηλολογία. Δείτε την προηγούμενη ομιλία του Προέδρου της Παγκόσμιας Ομοσπονδίας από το YouTube που έχει αποθηκευτεί. Έχει δώσει πάρα πολύ ωραίες ιδέες για τους σπηλολόγους και για τους συλλόγους, ειδικά τώρα σε μια περίοδο COVID, πώς μπορούμε να συνδράμουμε κι εμείς σε αυτή εδώ πέρα την προσπάθεια. Οπότε είμαστε ταυτόχρονα και στο Facebook και στο YouTube. Γράφετε τα μηνύματά σας και τα comments και στο τέλος θα τα απαντήσουμε. Οπότε, Χρήστο, δίνω το λόγο σε σένα. Από εμένα, καλό βράδυ, καλή συνέχεια σε όλους.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So today it's our pleasure to have here our friend Jacek, which his surname I cannot pronounce it very well, so I will skip that. So Jacek will give us a nice presentation about the Tatra Mountains in southern Poland. So he will talk about the caves there and all of his work and all of his time that he spent underground in these cold, muddy places. That I'm sure that everyone would like to join him there. So yeah, Jacek, you can start your presentation. We are here waiting for. We are really excited to hear about the Tatra Mountains and the caves there.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Christos, for the invitation, and thank you for opportunity to share some information about caves in Tatra Mountains. My name is Jacek Szczygieł. I'm the geologist at the University of Silesia in Katowitze, Poland, but also, and foremost, I'm a caver and I'm a speleologist who spent so far 20 years in caves in Tatra Mountains, and from 11 years now, I also conduct some research into caves, and I will share some experience with you today. So Tatra Mountains are located in the southern Poland, in Carpathian range. Geologically, they are located in Western Carpathians, central part of Western Carpathians. And Tatra Mountains are the highest mountain of all Carpathian range. So it's the highest peak is Gerlachowski Szczyt, is 2,655 meters high. It's located on the Slovakia, because the Tatra Mountains are located on the Polish-Slovakia border. And I like to say that Tatra Mountains are the smallest high mountain in the world. They're only 50 kilometers long and only 20 kilometers wide. and they are uplifted about 1.5 kilometers above the surroundings area. So they are small, but the landscape is very harsh, very alpine-like landscape. Why? Because of the glaciers. Scientists think that there was 8 glaciations during the last 3 million years in Tatra Mountains, and the last glaciation, you can see here a map of the last glacial maximum, and you can see in the reconstruction that glaciers cover all major valleys, and the last glaciation was quite extensive. And that's why we have this, we have basically all features that are typical for this high mountain geomorphology. We have, of course, U-shaped valleys, as you can see on the photo here. We have hanging valleys, glacial circles, some lakes up in the mountain, damped by moraines, and we have this needle-like, spur-like mountains. And what is important from caves' point of view, glaciers were not only in this uppermost part where which is built of crystalline rocks, but also in a part built of limestone. And where is glacier, and when the glacier melts, there is a lot of water, and if it's a lot of water and it's limestone, then there we have caves. So the glaciations were quite an important factor in the karst development and caves development in Tatra Mountains. But not only, of course, the geology is what determined the position and also the dimensions of the caves and karst. So a few words about the geology of Tatra. Tatra Mountains are built of crystalline core, which is here this pinkish, reddish, and brownish stuff, which is on the south part here, and it's covered with Mesozoic sedimentary cover, and on this Mesozoic sedimentary cover are 2 nappes overtrusted. So there is the succession of the sedimentary cover starts with clastic sediment, sandstone, mudstone. Then there is about 400 meters of limestone, and then the succession is stopped with again with clastic sediments, non-karstic sediments, mostly marls and shales. And because there is this sedimentary cover and then two nappes, there is a sort of sandwich of karstic and non-karstic rocks. So in the results, here you can see the map of the green or light blue colors, polygons are the karstic rocks in Tatra Mountains. So they form sort of belts extended on east-west direction. And if we zoom in, here is, I will now zoom in this north-central part, the so-called Czerwone Wierchy Massive. It's the most important karstic area in Tatra. Here you can see the red, the green stuff is the limestone, and the red stuff is the non-karstic rocks. And this west-east extension of these non-karstic rocks determine the flow direction in the karst drainage. So the underground drainage is independent from the surface drainage. On surface, water flow in Polish part of the Tatra from the south to the north, while in underground, in the caves, water flow from the east to the west. And in Czerwone Wierchy, but also in other drainage systems, the water can flow below the valleys. So it's like, as I said, it's independent from the surface hydrology, and it's determined by the by this, as I said, this sandwich of karstic and non-karstic rocks. But geology also produce some favorable condition for deep caves formation. How it works? So, as I said before, there is only 400 meters of limestone, but the deepest cave is more than 800 meters. How it could be? So, Tatra Mountains were uplifted along the southern border. Here on the geological map, you can see the subtatric fault. This is the fault along which the Tatra Mountains were uplifted, so they were tilted to the north, about 40 degrees. So all this sedimentary succession, limestone including, were tilted to the north, about 40 degrees. And when you see the geological cross section, you can see that between the differences of altitude between the highest outcrop of limestone, somewhere close to the summits, and the lowermost outcrop of limestone somewhere in the valley is circa about 950 meters. So it produced conditions where caves can develop and can be deep up to more or less 800-900 meters. So now we are close to the limit. So far, in Tatra Mountains was mapped about 1,000 caves. Of course, most of the caves are small caves, just a few meters long, but we also have quite a big caves. And here I will show the table only with Polish Tatra. Why? Because for the very long time, the big caves were, maybe with some small exceptions, where big caves and deep caves were in Polish part of Tatra. And just in 2004, two caves from Slovakia discovered a new cave, and since then they mapped 34 kilometers of passages, and now it's the longest cave in Tatra Mountains. It's on the east side of Tatra. It's called the Mesaczny Tień, so the shadow of the moon can be translated. But a part of this big cave, the rest of big caves is in the Polish Tatra, and the concentration of big caves is definitely in Polish Tatra. And the deepest one, it's the longest and the deepest, is Wielka Śnieżna cave system. As you can see, it's more than 23 kilometers long and 824 meters deep. And well, not only in Slovakia there are some new discoveries. Only here on this list you can see the number 10 deepest cave, Siwy Kocioł. It was discovered and explored in last 10 years. Cave number 4 deepest and 9 longest cave called Mała w Mułowej. It's actually the story of discoveries which sometimes it's worth to look on something with fresh eye. So the cave was known from the the cave was known from 70s or even 60s, and it was only 10 meters deep. It was one shaft and some narrow fissure at the bottom, and the cave is literally located 5 meters from the path to other caves where hundreds of cavers went through from these few decades. And in 2002, cavers from Nowy Sącz, they went through this very narrow place, and in few years they discover almost 4 kilometers of passages, and they reach siphon at the depth of 555 meters. So it's still in progress. Exploration in Tatra is still in progress. Just a month ago, I was in a cave called Zimna. It's here on the 8th place of the longest cave. And just a month ago, a friend of mine discovered new passages, just another 100 meters or so. But still, and the cave is known from few hundred meters, from a few hundred years, from few centuries, because the entrance is huge, and some shepherds know the cave from very long time. So yeah, that's the process which is still in progress. Few words about Wielka Śnieżna cave. It's the biggest. It's not only the deepest cave in Tatra Mountains, but it's also the deepest cave in whole Carpathian range. I just even in Romania there is no such deep caves. So the cave was discovered first from and explored from Otwór Śnieżna, and well, it was discovered in late 50s, and in 1960 they reached the first siphon, and then in next decades another caves were connected into the system, and in 1996 the cave, the uppermost entrance, the cave Wielka Litworowa, was connected to the system, but it's I'm not sure. Do you see my Christos? Do you see my cursor or not?
Yeah, we can see the cursor. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So the story about the connection of these two caves. So the cavers, the cave Wielka Litworowa was known to this point where is now connection. So the cavers from Wrocław, actually, they go down here, and from this point, almost at the bottom of the cave, they start climb some chimneys and meanders up. So it took them a few years of exploration, and when they were somewhere in this point, they realized that they are just a few meters from the Litworowa cave, and well, they have to work a bit, but they connected with some very narrow fissures. And as you can see, it's not the only place where Polish cavers climb in this system. There is a lot of chimneys here and here and here, which are climbed a few hundred meters up with no connection to the surface. So it's the biggest cave, but still the cave could be very, as you can see from my experience, the cave still could be quite challenging as here. But we also have some roomy places, not only narrow places. For example, the deepest shaft we have in Tatra Mountains, it's called the Wazeliniarze Shaft. It's in the Śnieżna Studnia cave. It's the second deepest cave in Tatra. It's always 800 meters deep. And the cave is 230 meters. So quite an impressive descent. And the biggest room or hall is called Fakro Chamber. And it's the dimensions of the floor is 85 by 45 meters, and it's about 90 meters high. And the only way to go into the cave, into this chamber, is to descend from the roof. So here you can see on the photo, you can see the upward view from the bottom to the top, to the roof of this cave, and the two white dots are cavers who are on the way down. And it's actually, it's the cave I told you about, which was just discovered not discovered, but it was known but explored since 2010. 2002, sorry. Yeah, a few words about the cave exploration in Tatra Mountains and also in Poland, because Tatra Mountains were also the most important karst region in Poland. So the first regular exploration starts in the early 20th century. The two brothers, Stefan and Tadeusz Zwoliński, they explored regularly some caves which are located quite low in the forest, with I want to say obvious or previously known by shepherds some entrances, but they pushed some leads quite far as the technology of wooden construction allowed them. So they dig some siphons, they climbed or descended some small steps with some ladders, but with harder obstacles they had to stop. And after Second World War, 5 friends from the university in Krakow established the first organization called Klub Grotołazów, and they were proper hardcore cavers. So they climb, and they dive, they use rope techniques. They spent many days in the cave to push lead as far as possible. And actually the leader of the group, Kazimierz Kowalski, he was with Fernand Petzl in Gówberze in 1956 on the first expedition where they reached first time the minus 1,000 meters. So yeah, they were for their times, they were really like the world top level of cavers. And it was actually in 50s, it was actually the boom of caving in Poland. So in every major city, in most of the major cities, some spήλαια club was established. And also in 50s, the Śnieżna cave in 1960, they reached the first siphon in the Śnieżna cave, which at the more than 500 meters depth. And it was actually at that time 7th deepest cave in the world. And when they connect 8 years later, when they connect the upper entrance, and the cave was more than 700 meters deep, at that time it was 6th deepest cave in the world. Of course, now it's far, far away on the list with all those thousands. Well, in 70s and 80s, there were communist time in Poland, so people have very little money and a lot of time, and not much to do in the country. So there was a lot of involved people in caving. In spήλαια clubs, for example, in my club now is maybe 35 people and 10 cavers who are involved somehow and do it regularly. And in 80s, there was 200 cavers only in my club, and there was tens of clubs in Poland. So with so many people and with so much time, they did really hard caving. They climbed a lot. They spent days underground. They push leads through very narrow meanders, and they explore a lot of hard caves, which are still hard to go through, and they explore it with, well, without electric drill holes or with much worse light and clothes. So yeah, that was really, really hard. And they also organize caving in Poland, the teaching of SRT techniques and so on. So actually now what we do, we just continue the idea of caving they started, and they somehow establish and organize, and we just do it in their ways. I would say that. Okay, so now we can focus on the caves. What kind of caves we have in Tatra Mountains? So, well, I would say we have horizontal caves, but there are not much horizontal. So the caves which are so-called paleophoratic caves, so from the caves which developed under the water table and then was dried out when the valley was deepened and the water table dropped, the cave dried out. And in many places on the world, there are so-called water table caves, which are almost like when you see the cross section or profile, like here, you can see the straight line of the passage. But caves in Tatra Mountains, because of local geological conditions and local hydrological conditions, they are so-called looping caves. So the water, because of water have to face a lot of obstacles, geological and hydrological obstacles. So the water go down and up and down and up, and yeah, and that's the in the results, the cave which should be horizontal, they actually few tens up to 100 or even more deep. And of course we have this classic phreatic passages, like here the perfect circle tube, but we also have quite a lot of this fissure-like fissures with only some small part which is a bit wider because of the water, and you can even see the bottom of the passage. And of course we also have this sponge-like mazes with all these pillars and narrow pipes which are connected, loops, and so on and so on. Yes, and here is actually the example of looping cave, which is even used in some cave and speleology encyclopedias and scientific textbooks. It's called Czarna Cave, and you can see here the profile of the cave. And as you can see, it's 300 meters deep. And in terms of origin, it can be considered as horizontal because the water flow horizontally under the water table. But when you go there as a caver, you need use a lot of ropes. There is a lot of climbing, traverses, and all kind of techniques you can imagine is in the cave, because there are all those loops and these passages which goes up and down and somehow cures and so on. But it's very roomy cave. It's definitely the cave which I would advise if you want to see Tatra Mountains. That's the cave worth to visit. It's quite roomy. It's very old cave. So far we know that it's older than 1 million years, but it's probably much older. We still have some research in progress. There's a lot of speleothems, and we don't have lot of speleothems in Tatra, so this is rather exceptions than the rule. Of course, we also have some active phreatic and epiphreatic caves. There are divers who dive through in the siphons, but because I want to say we have, but we rather had proper winters, some caves dried out during the winter, so we could enter the caves which are flooded in the summer. And when I started 20 years ago, we had this 3 months period every year. We can go to this cave. Now we have, if we're lucky, we have a month or 6 weeks, but sometimes it's just 2 weeks, or some caves are not accessible for a whole year. Yeah, and of course, except of this caves which are located low, close to the valley bottom, there are also siphons in these deep caves. For example, in Wielka Śnieżna system, on a depth of few hundred meters, where divers also dive and try to push some leads underwater. But we also have vadose caves, so the caves which form due to water which goes down with gravitation, and which is quite typical for this kind of cave. You can see it in Balkans or in Alps. There are some quite big shafts, and in between these two shafts are quite narrow meanders. And here is actually example on this right photo. You can see the example of I think the most narrow place I went through, and I believe if you go through this, you can go through everything, which is possible for human, of course. Yeah, so it's about 20 centimeters wide. It's quite harsh stuff. Yeah, but what we have also in Poland, in Polish Tatra, it's so-called proglacial caves, and it's actually the contribution of Poles to speleology. So it was published in 1977 by Głazek, Grudnicki, and Szynkiewicz. And the idea is that the water from melting glaciers, the amount of water was so huge that the whole caves were filled with this water, and because the hydraulic pressure was higher because of the amount of water, the erosion was more efficient. And in the vertical parts, in the shafts, sort of whirlpools created. And as results, we have in some caves, we have this perfectly rounded shafts, which actually looks like like vadose passages, which are perfectly circling a cross section. Also, what we have in Tatra Mountains, which is quite characteristic for Czerwony Wierchy Massive, are ramps. We call this płytowiec, and those are ramps which are dipping about 60 to 80 degrees. It depends on the bedding planes. And if we look on the cross sections through caves, we can see that most of passages, especially most of vertical passages, is guided by bedding planes. And that's why because the bedding planes are dipping about this 50, 60, 70 degrees, The cave passages also form steep conduits like that, and sometimes you can just descend and you have the perfect flat bedding plane under your boots and just go down this 70 degrees. And it's also fun to climb this. And of course, we also have a mixture of all of these phreatic and vadose shafts in few caves, in these bigger systems in Tatra. We have a few cave levels in one cave, and the cave levels are connected with steep vadose shafts. And we have in Tatra 5 regional cave levels, which are indicators of former water table. And what we can see in these caves is on the left, you can see the classic keyhole cross section. So the phreatic round tube, phreatic in origin, which was recycled by vadose water, and then the channel in the bottom of this tube was cut in. And also on the right you can see the situation when the phreatic passage, horizontal phreatic passage, is intersected by younger shaft. And here you can see the caver on a rope bridge, which is the way to go from one part of this phreatic passage to another one. Yeah, so caves in Tatra Mountains are usually surprising for tourists. They can provide some, good or bad emotions for cavers. Cavers can face some obstacles and try themselves with these obstacles. But for me, as a scientist, as a geologist, it's also the places, it's an environment where I can find information which I cannot find anywhere else in the Tatra Mountains. So first of all, was when I started working, it was at the study, when I was at the university as a student, I realized that most of the interpretation of the geological structure in Tatra Mountains based on the surface geology. And actually, as a caver, I have skills to go inside the mountain and see directly the mountain from the inside, to measure structures thousands of meters or few hundred meters from the surface. And this allowed me to find some details that were not known before. But caves, it's not only the static geological structures, but also caves developed simultaneously to mountains. So when the mountains rise, also some traces of this uplift are left in caves. And here you can see some examples of faults which were reactivated after the cave formation, and we can read this movement of the fault from displacement of cave passages, as here. And if you can see the location, it's even 600 meters below the surface. So quite a deep observations. And another advantage of caves is, of course, speleothems. Speleothems can be dated, and when the speleothem is damaged because of this fault which was rejuvenated, then we can date the time of rejuvenation, or at least the period or the time interval in which the rejuvenation took place. And in some cases we did this. But not only the hard rock is deformed, so not only the limestone and the speleothems are deformed, but traces of this tectonic activity can be also found in a soft sediment, soft cave sediments like sand, like some clay. And here you can see on the lower photo, you can see some deformations of these soft sediments, which were most probably caused by an earthquake, which then we can date the timing of this earthquake with some speleothems on top of this sand sediment. Oh, but apart from structures, singular structures we can find in the cave, cave itself is an indicator of water table. So from the position of the cave, we can read some information about the evolution of mountains. It's not a new idea. It was done in other massives, in other mountains, never done before in Tatra mountains. And well, what we did with what we start was we actually start from the lowermost caves. So we did some research we dated speleothems from the active epiphyratic caves, which are these caves which are dry in the winter and flooded in the summer. So speleothems from this cave tells us about age of the speleothem, tells us the minimum age of this cave drying moment. And if the cave is on the valley bottom, it means that the valley didn't deepen from the time. So actually what we found was that the caves in Tatra mountains, the lowermost caves, which are still active, they were already dried more than 300,000 years. So at least two last glaciation, including the last one, which was quite extensive, as you saw on the reconstruction at the beginning. The two last glaciation didn't deepen valley in Tatra mountains, and it is quite surprising because there is this general assumption that all glaciers, all glaciation cause the valley deepening, and the glacier erosion is very efficient. And what we show here, based on the data from the Tatras caves, we show that it's not exactly the case, that there should be also other factors that control this valley deepening and this erosion. Yeah. And now we go further. We like to model the evolution of the Tatra mountains, the valley incision in Tatra mountains. And so far we are now at the process of collecting samples from different levels in Tatra mountains, from different cave levels of different paleophyratic cave. And if we establish the age of the paleophyratic cave and we know that its position, then we can estimate the rate of valley incision and then maybe of mountain of uplift of Tatra mountains. And this work is now in progress. Hope soon I will get some more answers. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jacek. Thank you so much for this really, really nice presentation. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I was hoping that it will last a little bit longer because I was quite into the presentation. But yeah, thank you so much. From what I can see in the comments, we have a lot of people from two continents, from Europe and North America, and especially from the States. From Europe, we have people from Slovakia sending their regards, from Sweden, from Czech Republic, from Greece, of course, from Ireland, and yeah, sorry if I forgot someone. So we have a few questions now. If you want, we can try and answer them. You can answer them, actually. Yeah. So the first one is from Barbara S. And she's asking, what about the troglofauna? Are there any particular organisms that live only in that cave or caves? In this cave, yeah, I guess.
Well, so as far as I know, there is no endemics or organisms which lives only in the cave. Of course, we have bats, we have some spiders. I don't know about the microorganisms, so I don't want to say something. Yeah.
Okay.
But I never heard about some organism which is which lives only in the cave.
It's endemic, yeah,
which is endemic. Of course, we have a lot of bats.
Yeah. But you, as a geologist, you don't care about the fauna. No.
I mean, no.
So, yeah, of course.
I care. I care. I don't. Always so, I try to not wake them.
Yeah.
That's what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand if you have if you have to go into that deep caves like this one, and you have to just reach the bottom to start working, then you don't have time to, to check about fauna or stuff that they are irrelevant with your work. So we have another question from Fell into Shadows. Our friend here is asking, may I ask if there are any scallops found within the Paleophratic caves and what is their mean size? So I guess this guy is into the game. So
yes, of course. There is actually I just have this book here on my desk. So there is it's not published. The journal was published by my university in 80s and 90s. It was important journal. Now it's not exist anymore. So there you can find paper by Dita Kicińska.
Okay.
I can write it somehow. I don't know.
Oh, you can send it to me and I can put it on the
Yeah. So and it's called and it's the 2005 paper, and there is actually reconstructions of paleoflows from scallops measurements and from heavy minerals.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and Dita is it's you. And it's published here in English. It's the Polish journal, but the paper is in English, and it was her PhD.
Okay. So
of course,
and she's watching us. Hi from Poland. She just said hi from Poland. Okay. So please go on.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's actually one of the results is that the independency of the of this karstic drainage that the waters flow from the east to west. It's
based on scallops.
It's based off day tracing.
Okay.
In the recent time, but she confirmed that in previous morphology, when the Paleophratic was caves were phratic caves, there was also the same situation. So the drainage didn't change much since then.
And what is the size of the scallops? Have you?
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay.
I mean, you can find the
okay.
in the cave. It
So,
depends on the cross section and dimension.
Yeah. So now we have another question from Silex. What is your theory on ascensional dissolution shafts, chimneys, and blind shafts? Are they made by the water digging from bottom up in a cupola, or also by an open circuit through a small fissure above?
Well, it's of course it depends. So I think that
Sorry, sorry about this.
Well, we have I know 2 caves in Tatra Mountains which have confirmed a hypogenic origin. And they are on the edges of the mountain, close to the faults which are on the bounds, and there were some mineralogy done, and of course they have this classic cupola and this morphology from the bottom up.
Yeah, blind shafts.
The chimneys which I show you, that I tell you that there were some chimneys which were climbed and there is no entrance above. It's just because there is some collapse or just the fissure is too small, but it's not the type of cupola blind chimneys. Okay. It's just the varus water, which the deeper you go, the more water it collects, so the passage is bigger.
Okay. So another question from Laura.
Laura. Hi.
Hi, Jacek. Very nice and interesting your presentation. Congratulations for all your work based on cave research. Have you found spήλαια ages that go beyond 400,000 years and need the uranium-lead dating?
Is it the invitation for cooperation? Yeah, of course, yes. We have this. We have such old speleothems, and actually now we just finished this project about the bottom of the valley, and on the youngest cave we found speleothems which are more than 300,000 years old. So if the cave is 700 meters above the valley, we can expect Pliocene, so 3-4 million years old speleothems. So now we work with gravels and quartz and the cosmogenic nuclides, burial dating, but of course we are open for options of uranium-lead dating. Yeah.
Okay, so fell into shadows. Thank you for your answer. It was an awesome presentation. It seems that the work done in Tatra is great. Yeah, we can agree on this. I can agree on this as well. Okay, Speleo Silex also thanks you, Jacek, for your answer. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. And Dita Kisinka says that some information about scallops in the Tatra mountains, and there is I guess something will be posted soon here, but what I found really interesting about these passages that you just showed us is that this displacement in some passages, they look like they are coming out of a textbook actually. So yeah, it was really exciting
to hear that. Yeah, we now have project. We have very little.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura. We have very little splotems in Tatra, and the material in Tatra is very contaminated, and it's really hard to date. That's also the problem. We can collect more samples than we can realistically date it. And I collected also some broken splotems to date the displacement. And it's work in progress, so I should have some results soon.
Okay, so we have another question. I think that will be the last one. From Yakupika Plateau. Okay. Have in Tatras some paleo caves filled with lava?
No, we don't have actually we don't have volcanic rocks in Tatra mountains. It's not this type of origin. It's not the Andes. I mean, we have one layer of Lamborghini, but it's it's Mesozoic.
Okay.
But we don't have enough. There is nothing young.
Yep. Okay. So I think that was our last question, and I would like to thank everyone that stayed up with us for almost an hour now. I want to thank you, Jacek, once more, because it was a really nice presentation and really interesting presentation. This is also, we can see this in the comments because people are, all of the people are thanking you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
They're congratulating you.
Invitation.
Yeah. So next week we will be here again, not with Jacek, but we will have another guest. This time it will the presentation will be in Greek. So yeah, I don't know. The Greek audience, it will be nice for the Greek-speaking audience. It will be nice to join us. For the people that they don't speak Greek, they can also join us and try to, understand something from the pictures or anything. So, but we will continue with more presentations in English with cavers and speleologists from all over the world. So please subscribe in our YouTube channel or follow us on social media. And once more, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you very much, Jacek.
Thank you.
And hope to meet you soon somewhere, underground, if this situation if things are getting better with COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.